Tonight, the Cousins Club members Asim Altimimi and Richard Herman will debate the one versus two-state solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Dr. Avi Shlaim spoke second. He argued for two states. He is one of the Israeli new historians and is now a professor of international relations at Oxford University. His most famous book is The Iron Wall, Israel and the Arab World, published in the year 2000. His remarks will be presented by Richard Herman, who is himself a proponent of the two-state solution.
Let me begin with a word on where I stand. I've always been a supporter of a two-state solution to the conflict, and I remain a supporter of that solution. I do not question the legitimacy of the State of Israel within the pre-67 borders. What I'm opposed to, uncompromisingly, is the Zionist colonial project behind the Green Line. My objection to the idea of a democratic binational state in Palestine is not ideological, but practical. As an idea, it is attractive. Indeed, it's a noble vision. But as a practical matter, it has no chance of being turned into reality. In short, it's pie in the sky. There are several reasons for this. One is that the gulf between the two communities in Palestine is very deep and probably cannot be bridged. Israelis and Palestinians have very divergent national narratives, affiliations, and aspirations for the future. They're divided by language, religion, culture, education, and what have you. Secondly, there is precious little grassroots support on the Palestinian side for a one-state solution. On the Israeli side, there is virtually no significant support for this idea. The overwhelming majority of Israelis, whatever their political stripe, are opposed to this notion, and indeed they regard the very term, a binational state, as a code for the dismantlement of the Jewish state. Third, in contrast to what Ali said, the trend in international politics since the end of the Cold War has been towards the reassertion of ethnic nationalism. Just look at the disintegration of the Soviet Union. Look at the disintegration of the former Yugoslavia into 6 separate states. Look today what is happening in Georgia, where even with a small province, there are secessionist movements. Perhaps the most instructive parable is near our home in Iraq. If Kurds, Sunnis, and Shiites cannot live peaceably together in Iraq, it's inconceivable that Israelis and Palestinians would be able to achieve this feat in Palestine. The binational state is okay as a vision. It is a useful framework for organizing our thinking about the problem. It is an invaluable means for applying pressure on Israel to begin ending the occupation. But it will never be implemented. To proceed on the assumption that the binational state idea can be realized is not just an illusion, it's a dangerous delusion. My own approach is conditioned by my understanding of history. For most of my professional career, I have meandered around the Palestinian tragedy. What is the basic cause of the conflict? The basic cause is the clash between two national movements. There are two nations on one land, hence the conflict. It follows that the only reasonable, the only practical solution is the partition of Palestine. It is because I believe in a two-state solution that I was an enthusiastic supporter of the Oslo Accord. I believe that that accord, despite all its countless shortcomings, laid the foundation for an independent Palestinian state alongside Israel. The question is, why did the Oslo Accord fail? There are many reasons for the collapse. One of them was the Palestinian return to violence. But I believe that there was one single, most important, most fundamental reason for the breakdown of this process. Israeli settlement expansion. Under the leadership of the Likud, Israel reneged on its side of the deal. You simply cannot go forward towards a solution with the Palestinians and at the same time be stealing more and more of their land. Land grabbing and peacemaking just don't go together. The massive and intricate web of settlements across the West Bank today makes the negotiation of a two-state solution a logistical nightmare. The problem is that the Israeli government continues relentlessly to destroy the basis for a two-state solution. Ali's logic, it seems to me, is flawed. Ali's logic is, since the Israelis would not permit an independent Palestinian state, we should ask them to give us equal rights within a single state. But the Israeli objection to a one-state solution is much more intense than their objection to a two-state one. A one-state solution would institutionalize apartheid. It would be worse than South Africa. There are already two classes of citizens. If there were a one-state solution, the Palestinians, both inside present-day Israel and in a greater Israel, would all end up as second- or third-class citizens. They would become the hewers of wood and drawers of water for the Jews. Ali, if you think that this apartheid system will change once the Palestinians achieve a majority, you're kidding yourself. The right in South Africa eventually yielded power to the black majority, but Israel, with its exclusive Zionist ideology and its overwhelming military power, will never yield political power. To conclude, Israel today is the main obstacle to any solution to the problem. But a two-state solution remains the only viable solution. At some point, the Israeli public will realize that the occupation cannot be sustained indefinitely, and it will elect a government that will begin to end the occupation. At present, there is not a light at the end of the tunnel. Nevertheless, I remain optimistic about the future because I believe that nations, like individuals, are capable of acting rationally after they've exhausted all other alternatives. Thank you.